Uh-huh. I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is Tuesday, the start of back-to-back shows for us on back-to-back days as we get you caught up on all the Week 7 action and prepped for what's coming in Week 8. And what's coming in Week 8 is the Bipocalypse. 6 teams will be on a bye. In addition to those 6 teams on a bye, a lot of teams are going to be looking at quarterback changes. So that's going to be something that we dive into as we talk about Week 7. And that starts with last Thursday's game. They called it the Icy Hot Bowl going in because it was Flacco versus Rodgers. I think we should have called it the Spicy Bowl because it was pretty exciting. Bengals pulling off a 33-31 victory. Aaron Rodgers, pretty good. 342 yards and 3 touchdowns. But more importantly, probably to us in fantasy, Jaylen Warren actually got going. 16 carries to only 3 for Kenneth Gainwell, had 127 yards rushing. Also had 4 receptions for 31 yards. Does this make you feel a little bit better about Warren as a weekly play?
Yeah. I mean, he's RB15 in points per game. He's clearly the lead back. You know, Will I be surprised if we have a Kenneth Gainwell hot hand game? No, I won't. But, I mean, also, let's not forget that the Bengals give up the 5th most rushing yards in the league. So this was tailor-made for Jaylen Warren, who's a mediocre athlete by NFL standards. But he fits that offense, and he knows what they want to do. He's a good pass catcher. And I think that honestly, I think it was a fluke that Cincinnati won, but I don't know. I like Jaylen Warren, and he's been performing this year with the role. Kenneth Gainwell is a good backup, and hopefully the Steelers, even if Gainwell looks like he's quote unquote got the hot hand, they remember that Jaylen Warren is the guy they want running the ball, especially because I just traded for Warren in a league where I'm contending. So,
Arthur Smith is really known for not only doing the smart thing, but for caring about your fantasy team.
And I gave up my boy Kayshon Boutte in a second for Jaylen Warren in a 4th, because I got a team that's Ashton Genty and Omarion Hampton were my 2 running backs coming into the season, and now I'm piecing it together.
Meanwhile, for the Bengals, part of the reason they went and got Joe Flacco was to potentially keep them in a race in what has progressively become a kind of dumpster fire division in the AFC North. This win gets them to 3-4. Flacco, 342 yards, 3 touchdowns. Do you think he can keep them in this race?
So let's say Burrow returns December 15th. That's kind of the target. So that means 6 more games with Joe Flacco. They're 3-1. They're probably going to split their next 2, if I had to guess. Let me go back to my schedule here. So let's go load faster. So what they got, the Jets and the Bears, They could go 2-0, but the Bears have some firepower, and Cincinnati's defense is bad. The Jets' offense is as bad as Cincinnati's defense, so I think Cincinnati can win that game. So let's say they split. They're 4-1 going into the bye. After the bye, they've got 8 games, 4 more games until Burrow returns December 15th against the Ravens. In those 4 games, first 4 games after the bye, it's Pittsburgh at home, in Pittsburgh, the Patriots, who are playing fairly well, the Ravens, who are not good, and then the Bills. That I think is an optimistic 2-2 stretch there, more likely 1-3. If they can split the next 2 before the bye, go 2-2 after the bye, they're sitting at 500 plus the tie heading into the last 4 games with Joe Burrow. They can make. They don't have. Yeah,
they're 3-4.
Oh, I don't know what I'm thinking.
So if they go 4-4 over the next, that would be 7.
Well, if they go 3-3 over the next 6, then they'll be what, 6-7?
Yeah,
with
you figure
4 games to go, and those 4 games,
9 and 8 could get in.
Yeah, I mean it'll be close. I think Baltimore is bad, Cleveland is bad. It depends on how good Pittsburgh actually is. I mean, likely there's only going to be one team coming out of the AFC North. Right now, I'd probably put my money on Pittsburgh, but I wouldn't be surprised if it is Cincinnati.
We had the final London game. The Los Angeles Rams went and played the Jacksonville Jaguars, got the 35-7 victory. No Puka Nacua. They only had about 260 total yards, but managed 35 points, 5 passing touchdowns from Stafford, 3 of those to Devontae Adams, who only had 35 yards on 5 catches. What do you make of this Rams offense? It was probably, to me, looking at the stats, aside from if you started Stafford, you were feeling good, one of the least impressive 35-point outputs I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was an oddity of a game. You know, when you throw 5 touchdown passes, you'd expect at least 200 yards passing, probably close to 3, maybe more. But, you know, it was one of those weird games where Stafford just completed he only threw the ball 31 times. Both Williams and Corum carried the ball 12 times each. Williams had a nice 4.5 yard per carry average, but, you know, neither one of them really, I mean, the running game didn't do a lot. The passing game didn't have a lot of yardage. It was just short fields and touchdowns. And Stafford's QB 10 on the year, and he's 3rd in passing yards, even with this putrid 182-yard game. So they're going to go the way Matt Stafford goes. And as long as Matt Stafford has at least one of Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, that'll be enough to keep defenses honest and open it up for Kyron Williams. And then Tyler Higbee will produce, or if not Higbee, Colby Parkinson.
He was looking like the Steelers there, every tight end except for Pat Freiermuth for the Steelers, although sometimes you have a good game. This felt like every tight end but Tyler Higbee. Well, let's throw a touchdown to Terrence Ferguson. Colby Parkinson will lead us in yardage.
Higbee did have 6 targets. He was second on the team in targets. They just didn't convert.
Meanwhile, for the Jaguars, Travis Hunter, they've been saying they're going to get him more involved. He had 14 targets, by far the most on the team, caught 8 for 101 and a touchdown. Does this make you encouraged if you roster Hunter?
Yes. The encouraging part, though, was his defensive snaps. Now, we saw it earlier in the year where he was playing about 40% of the defensive snaps, and then it kind of declined to, in the 20s and he probably had his best game before this, where he played primarily offense. Then they started using him on defense a little bit more. And if I remember correctly, looking at his snap shares, there were a couple games he was in the mid 60s in defensive snaps.
Yep.
And 60% in defensive snaps. But it was only, I think, 22% defensive snaps this week. And I think if I'm Liam Cohen, I'm like, Travis, look, we're gonna take your defensive prowess and we're gonna make it a party trick. Occasionally we're gonna whip it out, let you play a little defense, but we're gonna play you on offense. And when that will open, like, I don't expect Parker Washington to consistently get 10 targets. I think those are going to go back to Brian Thomas. So if we're getting 10 to 12 targets each, 8 to 12 targets each for Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas, I like those odds. Brenton Strange was out. I think when he gets back, he'll figure prominently in the passing game as well.
He's on the IR, so it's going to be a few weeks.
And, they did not run the ball much at all in this game. 8 carries for ETN, 5 for Tootin. Oddly enough, 3 for Parker Washington. I mean, Parker Washington had 13 opportunities to Travis Hunter's 14, and that led the team.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Eagles went to Minnesota, got the 28-22 victory. Jalen Hurts throwing for 326 yards, completing 19 of 23 passes, 3 touchdowns, a lot of deep balls to Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown, each of whom went over 100 yards. They combined for 306 of the passing yards and all 3 touchdowns. Are we feeling better about the Eagles' pass offense?
At first blush, yes. I feel really good. But then you go back and look, and Hurts threw the ball 23 times. It was just a case of they connected a lot on long passes. They had touchdowns of were 37 yards, 79 yards, 26 yards. It was a really nice game for fantasy, but it was an anomaly for what the Eagles have been doing this year. They had 18 fewer plays and were down 10 minutes in the time of possession. They pretty much had to go for the deep ball to beat Minnesota. And it worked in this game. I mean, on the plus side, 17 of the 23 targets went to A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. And so you love to see that narrow target funnel. But I'm not necessarily hanging my hat that on 23, 25, 27 pass attempts, I'm going to see this kind of production out of Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown.
Meanwhile, there have been some questions about whether the Vikings would be better off sticking with Carson Wentz. They're now 3-3 on the season. He wasn't terrible in this game, but 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. They did not get the win. You think when McCarthy is healthy, likely next week, possibly Thursday night, they're going to go back to him, right?
So, well, he didn't throw any touchdowns to his own team this week. He wasn't giving up 7.4 yards per play to the Eagles offense. So, he was under heavy pressure on the pick 6. Honestly, can the Vikings win with J.J. McCarthy? Probably. I think they can win more with Carson Wentz. I think Wentz is a much better passer than J.J. McCarthy. They don't trust McCarthy to throw the ball 30 times a game, and probably for good reason. I'm torn because most coaches, when they invest a draft pick like they did in J.J. McCarthy, they're going to be like, yeah, we need to play this guy. but I think the offense has better balance and is more dynamic with Carson Wentz. Yeah, you're going to have some games with a 0-2 touchdown to interception ratio. You're going to have those with JJ McCarthy too. The difference is when you have them with JJ McCarthy, he's doing it on, 22, 23 pass attempts and 150 yards passing instead of 313 yards passing. Now, the Vikings did also open up Aaron Jones' practice window this week, so he'll be returning off of IR to give them another weapon. So Jordan Mason's played pretty well in his stead.
One of the ugliest games of the day, the Carolina Panthers went to New York to play the Jets, got the 13-6 victory, Jets dropping to 0-7. For the Panthers, it was our first game seeing the backfield split now with Rico Dowdle, Chuba Hubbard. Dowdle, 17 carries, 79 yards. Hubbard, 14 for 31. Hubbard, 3 targets, caught 2 for 24. Dowdle, 2 targets, 1 for 17. What did you think of the split?
So it was basically a 55-45 split in Hubbard's favor. And Hubbard was not very productive. On the season, Hubbard is RB20 in points per game, and Dowdle is RB16 in points per game. I would, unless Hubbard starts to produce some explosive plays, I expect that Dowdle is going to end up flipping the usage. Dowdle did have more touches. He had 17 carries to Hubbard's 11. I think that'll continue to break that way, and Dowdle will eventually, could be as early as next week, play more snaps than Hubbard. I mean, if you're Dave Canales, you need to play the more explosive back, and right now that's Rico Dowdle.
Yeah.
And that's how they're going to take pressure off of Bryce Young. It's crazy. It looked like Xavier Legette was heading out of the league, and he had 9 catches on 11 targets for 92 yards last week. Mm-hmm. So, Tet McMillan's having a pretty good season. They have weapons. I think the explosiveness of Dowdle will put him in the driver's seat in the running back room.
Meanwhile, another terrible game for Justin Fields, 6 of 12 for 46 yards, 3 sacks, and had 4 carries for 22, was replaced by Tyrod Taylor. Wasn't much better, 10 of 22, 126 yards, 2 interceptions, also 3 sacks, 3 carries for 11 yards. They're 0-7. It sounds like they're leaning towards starting Taylor this week. Do you think that's a good move?
I don't know that it matters, to be honest. So you get 130 yards passing out of Tyrod Taylor, or you theoretically get 75 yards rushing out of Justin Fields. Fields hasn't been running great, but he hasn't been running often. He's trying to do the right thing passing. They didn't have Garrett Wilson. And the Jets' offensive line has given up a league-high 13.2% sack rate. Now, some of that is on Justin Fields holding the ball too long. I'm not going to say he's without blame here. I just don't think they have a good quarterback on. I mean, they should try to bring in Tommy DeVito or something. I mean,
yeah. It's getting grim. And 0-7, start to worry about Aaron Glenn. The New Orleans Saints went to Chicago. The Bears got the 26-14 victory. Kendre Miller tore his ACL, so he's out for the year, but we have not seen a lot from Alvin Kamara of late. In the last 3 games, 19 carries for 76 yards and no touchdowns combined, only 342 yards rushing and 1 touchdown this season. Only 25 receptions for 123 yards and no reception and no touchdowns either. For PPR, some of those games have kept him okay, but he's only running back 22 on the season, averaging 10.8 points per game. Not what we have come to expect. Would you be looking at moving Kamara right now if you were not a contender?
Yeah, I definitely would. I think that moving him to a contender as a depth piece is the way to go for fantasy. I mean, he's on pace to rush for 815 yards and catch 61 passes. that's not for nothing. I mean, also at some point we have to look at Kamara and say there's going to be a drop off, and it's here.
Yeah.
But some of it also could be just the mediocre offense they have right now in New Orleans. Like, I get it. Spencer Rattler's giving it the old college try. I like that he could potentially be probably a mid-level starter if he reaches his peak. He's got a really good arm. I'm not sure what's going to happen with the Kellen Moore offense now that Kellen Moore is a head coach. Can he continue to produce? But, I mean, Spencer Rattler's putting the ball where it needs to be with Olave, Juwan Johnson, Rashid Shaheed getting, 23 out of the 32 targets. But Kamara only being able to carry the ball 11 times and then only getting 3 targets. They're not getting the ball down the field. They're not efficient as far as producing points. And if the team in general isn't producing points, that caps the fantasy side of the production. I think they're playing okay. They've just got to start to convert drives into touchdowns, and then more points will come for fantasy for both Kamara and for Olave, Shaheed, and Johnson.
Meanwhile, for Chicago, rookie Kyle Monangai has displaced Roschon Johnson as number 2, and he's starting to get a little more run. 13 carries this week for 81 yards and got a touchdown. That is by far the most carries and yards he's gotten, but we have been seeing him get involved. What do you think of him?
There was talk in the offseason he was kind of a dynasty darling because we all expected Ben Johnson hated DeAndre Swift. But Swift had a great game. 19 carries, 124 yards, caught his own
back-to-back 100-yard rushing days.
Yeah, and put a touchdown in. Monangai is a good running back. He was a 7th-round draft pick or 6th-round draft pick for a reason. Yeah. Some of it is the general devaluation of the running back position, and other parts of it are he just doesn't have the ideal size or ideal athleticism for the position, but he's a good running back. He was RB12 this week. I think if the Bears are going to rush it 40 times, Monangai's definitely playable. I mean, Roschon Johnson kind of became the Bears' Kendre Miller. He's going from doghouse to training room to doghouse to training room and just can't seem to get it together. And then Monangai come in and playing well.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like a better prospect. So,
I think Monangai, I want to see, like, the Saints aren't a very good team. I want to see how the Bears use him in games against better competition.
Another ugly game. The Dolphins went to Cleveland, and the Browns just blew them away 31-6. Tua Tagovailoa, 12 of 23, 100 yards, 3 interceptions, no touchdowns. Did run 3 times for 6 yards. Ended up getting the hook for Quinn Ewers, the rookie, who's now moved up to quarterback number 2 on that depth chart. After the game, Mike McDaniel said they're sticking with Tua as their starter, but should they?
I mean, Quinn Ewers was a 7th-round draft pick for a reason, too.
They do have Zach Wilson they could try, too.
Yeah, and he's on his 3rd team for a reason, too. I mean, at some point, you've got a lame duck coach is what everybody expects, and rightly so. I mean, the team feels like it's falling apart. I'm not sure if I'm going to start one of the backups, I'm probably going to go with Wilson first, just because he's got experience and see what he can do. But it's not like they were playing, the Carolina defense or something. I mean, the Browns give up the 5th fewest passing yards in the league. They got one of the best defensive lines, one of the best pass rushers. They've got very good cornerbacks. They have a very strong defense. And the weather was shit up there. It was raining. Yeah. It was windy. And Tua isn't known for having the biggest arm.
Maybe just the biggest mouth.
Know. Yeah. I don't know that, if Tua is not going to be your answer anymore, I'm not sold that Wilson or Ewers is the answer either.
I just think if they're playing themselves out of contention, it's worth giving somebody a look. But I'm with you. They don't have incredible options. For Cleveland, meanwhile, Quinshon Judkins, another great game, 25 carries, 84 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did not play in week 1, but since coming onto the field in week 2, he is running back 11, averaging 15.3 points per game. How do you feel about Judkins?
He's kind of meeting expectations. We all thought he'd go in there. He would take over the job. He would play well. He's a decent pass catcher. They don't use him a ton in the passing game. He's but Cleveland has always kind of done that. He stepped into the Nick Chubb role. Outside of his 46-yard touchdown run, he wasn't super efficient, only averaged 1.6 yards per carry, but he dominates the touches, 25 of 29 carries, 25 of 32 running back opportunities. So he's the guy there. He's who you want to roster. He's an every week starter until he gets injured, which he's typically been very durable. He's got good size. He's almost 220 pounds, about 6 foot. So I like Judkins as they try to protect Dillon Gabriel and work their way around the deficiencies on the offensive line that's gotten old and ravaged by injuries. They're going to need Judkins to play well. I could see this being kind of a typical week for Judkins outside of the 3 touchdowns, getting 20-ish to 25 touches, and being sub 4.0 per carry or per touch, just because the offensive he's going to have to do a lot of the work on his own because the offensive line is struggling.
New England Patriots went into Tennessee, and it was a little tighter than expected in the early going, but they get the 31-13 victory. As much as we'd like to see TreVeyon Henderson's role grow, it just doesn't seem to be happening. He was the 4th most carries on the team behind the quarterback and running back Terrell Jennings, who comes out of nowhere, but it's Ramondre Stevenson, 18 carries, 88 yards, and touchdown. A little bit of a slow start, but had a pretty strong day. Do you think it's an encouraging sign for him?
So Mike Vrabel has shown incredible patience with Ramondre Stevenson's fumbling. And it almost feels like he's punishing TreVeyon Henderson for going to the same college he did. So it's wild because Henderson is a very, very talented back. We've seen him make plays in preseason and at times be very explosive, be very good in the passing game, be very good blocking. For whatever reason, he's gotten pushed way down the depth chart, and he's got to work his way back up. I think until I see otherwise, and you're going to get blindsided by it. Right now you should be leaning into Ramondre, but no, at some point down the road, he's going to have a game where all of a sudden he gets 5 touches and Jennings or Henderson, get 15 and are productive and it costs you in fantasy. But right now, lean into Ramondre Stevenson, ride him.
Meanwhile, the Titans' first game without Brian Callahan. Mike McCoy said he was going to simplify the offense. No Calvin Ridley this week. They did jump out to a 10-3 lead after the first quarter, 13 points in the first half, but nothing doing in the second half. Couldn't run the ball at all. Not great passing numbers. Veteran Tyler Lockett released today. What do you make of the Titans' new look offense?
Well, I don't know. It seems like more of the same. I mean, it isn't that they couldn't run the ball; they just didn't even try. Though they had a 13 play deficit, and gosh, an 18-minute time of possession deficit. It was brutal. They just didn't have the ball, and so I think there was some feel to, well, if we don't have possession. When we do, we got to try to make something happen. Pollard caught 6 passes. That was nice. You like to see that because he only had 18 yards rushing on 6 carries. Gunnar Helm flashed a little, a little bit at the tight end position, but nobody started Gunnar Helm. Very few people, I think, started Chimera Dike, who led the team in receiving and scored the only touchdown for them. So it's going to be a team you want to avoid going forward, but you got to play Ward. You want to get him that experience, let him get the snaps, let him try to be productive. I think that the combination of Ridley and DK,
to be
and
clear,
Iomanor,
you're saying the Titans have to play Ward. We should not be playing Ward.
right? Yeah, to clarify. But I think, getting the rookies Iomanor and DK and Helm playing time along with Ward is going to be good going into next year. You want these guys to be able to grow, and there's no substitute for being on the field, putting in the time. Let him, if you can keep Cam Ward confident, and learning, then I think that's a win.
Meanwhile, probably the worst game of the day, the Kansas City Chiefs hosted the Raiders, got the 31-0 victory. I mean, it was good if you like to watch Chiefs touchdowns, I guess, but Raiders barely showing up. Geno Smith, 10 of 16, 67 yards. On the plus side, didn't chuck an interception. Did end up getting replaced by Kenny Pickett late. The Raiders are going into a bye week. Do you think we see Kenny Pickett coming out of it?
I mean, I almost think you've got to. Geno's tied with Tua for a league high 10 interceptions. And he's just not being productive. I get it. Jacoby Myers was out, and he's the de facto number 1.
So is Brock.
But they're not. Yeah, and so they're not getting anything done on offense. There was a lot of talk leading into this week with Bowers out that Michael Mayer was a plug-and-play tight end. I like Michael Mayer a lot, but it just didn't happen this week. And granted, the Chiefs have a very good defense, and they've got a very good pass rush with Chris Jones and George Karlaftis. So, it wasn't going to be easy to begin with. It just, I don't know how much difference Kenny Pickett is going to make, but I also don't think Geno Smith is going to get you to the promised land either.
Meanwhile, Rashee Rice makes his first start coming back from injury and suspension. 10 targets, caught 7 for 42 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's what you want to see if you roster Rice, right?
Oh, my God, yes. I mean, if you drafted him in redraft and you've been holding on to him, letting him take up a roster spot, for him to come in and put up 7 catches and 2 touchdowns, would you like him to get more than 6 yards per catch? Yes, you would. But you'll take the 2 touchdowns and the 7 receptions in a PPR all day long. I think that it's gonna be like, how does the second pass catcher shake out there? Is it gonna be Kelsey? Is it gonna be Worthy? Is it gonna be Hollywood Brown? Brashard Smith was second on the team in targets with 5. So it's going to be an interesting season outside of Rashee Rice in the passing game. They're not getting a whole lot out of the run game. Pacheco carried the ball 15 times, and Smith carried the ball 14 times, but they didn't break 100 yards, though Pacheco did get in the end zone.
Battle of first place teams, at least going into the week. The Colts went to battle the Los Angeles Chargers. Colts get the 38-24 victory, now sitting at 6-1. not only the best record in the AFC, the best record in football. Daniel Jones slinging the ball everywhere. Jonathan Taylor, another 3-touchdown game. How far can the Colts go?
Man, they've got an elite running back, an elite tight end, 3 very good wide receivers. Jones has probably the best offensive line he's played behind in his career. And to be fair, it's not as good as the Colts offensive line from 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. But the offensive line is really good. I think they're the best team in the league? Probably not. Can they win a playoff game or two? Yeah, I think so. Can Jones get them to the Super Bowl? That'll depend on what the defense does when they get in the playoffs against the best teams in the league. They've got the second best running back in the game in Jonathan Taylor. And I think the ceiling is really high. Hopefully for them, Daniel Jones meltdown game. And, if history tells us anything, it tells us there's going to be one. So hopefully if I'm the Colts, that happens in the regular season, not in the playoffs.
Meanwhile, for the Chargers, we saw Oronde Gadsden, another huge game, 9 targets, caught 7 for 164 and a touchdown. Do you like him in Dynasty?
I love him in Dynasty. I think that now that he's got his opportunity, he's tight end 2 over the last 2 weeks, tight end 7 since he moved into since he started playing. I think he gives that team a weapon that they didn't really have. Pairs very well with Quentin Johnston and his speed, Ladd McConkey and his possession his possession ability, and Keenan Allen's veteran savviness. I don't know that they want to have Justin Herbert throwing the ball 55 times a game. That seems like a lot, but I like they've got a plethora of passing weapons. And with their running game in disarray with Omari and Hampton out, they need, they're going to throw the ball a lot. They have the weapons to throw the ball a lot. That may provide some relief for the running game to be able to be productive. But until Omari and Hampton gets back, I think you can slot most of these receiving options into your lineup.
Meanwhile, what ended up being one of the better games of the day, the Denver Broncos pull off the 33-32 victory over the Giants.
Was it one of the better games or one of the better quarters?
Well, we'll see. Jackson Dart against a pretty good defense had 3 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. Are you impressed with what you've seen from him?
Yeah, so Dart's QB4 since he became the starter. There's going to be a little bit of a roller coaster with him. There's going to be some ups and downs. He is a rookie. The interceptions come at sometimes not the best times, but he's a really good athlete. And we saw Brian Daboll, make Josh Allen into a very good quarterback using his run pass ability. I think Dart may be a little further along in the accuracy department than Josh Allen was when he came into the league. But making do without Malik Neighbors and Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson's having a phenomenal season. And then you got Tyler Johnson, Lil Jordan Humphrey, Jalen Hyatt, and Bo Collins all kind of stepping up. Theo Johnson's and Daniel Bellinger at the tight end position, both producing touchdowns this week. I think they have a really good opportunity. And then Tyrone Tracy's back from being injured. And the whole Tyrone Tracy, I could have ran through that whole. He scored.
I was going to say he's been pretty terrible. Even a blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while. His carries were awful, other than one where they just missed. Speaking of awful, though, Bo Nix looked like dog shit for 46 minutes and then managed to throw 2 and run 2 touchdowns. Ends up being QB1 for the week with 40 points. How are we feeling about him?
He's QB6 on the year, and much like Dart, I think he just pull that bar down, clamp that seatbelt in, and you ride that roller coaster, baby. He's got to get his completion percentage up. He's only completing 62% of his passes. I like Bo Nix. He comes into the league with a lot of experience. I don't know if it is, he doesn't fit the Sean Payton offense as well as maybe Payton would like, because he's a little bit of a wild card. And, I think we always associate Sean Payton. We're always going to associate him with the precision of Drew Brees. I don't think Bo Nix is necessarily that kind of a precision quarterback, but man, he can be exciting.
Arizona played host to the Green Bay Packers. Packers get the 27-23 victory. We mentioned how unimpressive the stats were for the Rams in winning in London. Probably even less impressive here for the Packers. 168 net passing yards, 94 net rushing yards. Are we sure the Packers are good?
No. I mean, Josh Jacobs is, but if you're only going to give him 13 carries and 1 target, that's not great for fantasy. You're glad he got the 2 rushing touchdowns. But they did I think they had an advantage of a short field a couple times. Were able to make stuff happen there. I'm curious to see what this offense does when Christian Watson gets back. Is he going to be able to provide that deep threat that Romeo Doubs wants to be, but he's just not? Will that allow Matthew Golden to, slide into a more productive role? Unfortunately, I think when you've got Josh Jacobs, that's going to hamper the passing game a little bit. And, I think 30 attempts per game is the ceiling for the Packers unless something goes wildly off course.
They're just unimpressive all the way around, and they've played a fairly easy schedule to come away from this. This brings me kind of the Cardinals. I know they're 2-5. I know he hasn't won either of the last 2 weeks, but I still think this offense looks better with Jacoby Brissett, who filled in for Murray again this week. They're going to a bye. Am I crazy?
No, but I mean, Kyler Murray is a particular type of quarterback. He's chaotic. He's going to run around. It's harder for him to stand in the pocket because he can't see over the blockers. Unfortunately, while Brissett, 6'2", 6'3", is a little more of your traditional mildly athletic quarterback. He's not a speedster by any stretch, but he does have a little bit of athleticism. They're not winning with Brissett either. So it's tough to say, well, I want to go all in. But they've had their 2 highest passing yardage games with Brissett. Brissett's got a 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio versus Kyler's 6-3, though Kyler does have a little bit better completion percentage than Brissett. It feels like Trey McBride is what you can count on in Arizona in the passing game. You can count on them trying to get the ball to Marvin Harrison, but some games it works and some games it doesn't. But if they're not going to win with Brissett, they're not going to play him. They're going to play Kyler Murray when he's healthy. So I would expect as soon as Kyler's back, he's healthy, he's back in there.
Either.
No, but he's the guy you're paying. So if you're not winning, you're going to play the guy you're paying.
The last of the Sunday afternoon games, Dallas Cowboys hosted the Washington Commanders, doubled them up, a 44-22 victory. Dennis, the Commanders were darlings last year, but now they're 3-4, third place in their own division. Next few weeks, they are at the Chiefs, home for the Seahawks, Lions, then a home game or I don't know if it's technically at home. It says verse, but they play the Dolphins in Spain. Then they're back home against the Broncos. They close with 2 of their last 3 games against the Eagles. 3 and 4, can't stay healthy. Jaden Daniels been banged up. Their wide receivers constantly out. Could this Commanders team be in trouble?
If they can't stay healthy, I think they are. It's good to see, Jalen Lane coming on and playing well. Luke McCaffrey flashes here and there, but he hasn't been consistent. Chris Moore is trying to pull the Brandon Lloyd 5th-year breakout in his 8th season. But once McLaurin and Debo get healthy, and Daniels, if he can get healthy, we'll see a little truer, representation of what the Washington offense is. I mean, they're racked by injuries. It's not been great because of that. Honestly, it doesn't look like trading away Brian Robinson was a great idea. But if the offensive line isn't giving the quarterback protection or opening up holes for the running back, does it really matter?
Meanwhile, for Dallas, another good, solid game from Dak Prescott. 21 of 30, 264, 3 more touchdowns. It was nice to have CeeDee Lamb back. Got a 74-yard deep ball thrown up to Pickens over to Ferguson. Cowboys now 3-1, probably better than we thought they might be. Is Dak good enough to keep them in a playoff race?
When you got Javonte Williams playing at RB6 level, and then Lamb, Pickens, and Ferguson in the passing game, they have a puncher's chance every week. They just, and they've got probably the best kicker with the biggest leg in the game in Brandon Aubrey. So they have a puncher's chance every single week, regardless of who they're playing. Their defense isn't great, but occasionally it'll create some turnovers. So if they can stay within a score in any given week, they can put a win on the board last minute. They're probably 4-4-1. This is where I was talking earlier about the tie. They're probably 4-4-1 going into the bye. I think getting 5 wins after the bye keeps them in the playoff hunt. 6 wins probably gets them the 7th seed in the NFC.
Yeah, those ties, sometimes they benefit you, sometimes they screw you. It just depends on how close you end up being. It's going to be fascinating. Sunday Night Football saw the Falcons go to battle the 49ers, and the 49ers getting the 20-10 pretty comfortable victory. Dennis, are the Falcons the ultimate home road team? Because they have been dynamite at home, putting up big scores and looking pretty solid. They have been kind of limp on offense on the road.
Yeah, it's about a 15-point differential home road, 26 versus 11. The defense hasn't been has been a little more consistent, only having a 5-point differential in what they're giving up. But, Bijan didn't have a great game running the ball this week, and that takes a lot of pressure off the passing game. Penix, for as much as Chris Collinsworth wants to rave about Michael Penix's arm and arm strength, he's not very good. He hasn't, and he's never going to be in the top in accuracy, but there were a lot of throws he had that he just missed. It was great for Kyle Pitts managers, 7 for 62. Drake London only went 4 for 48. Bijan, while he only rushed for 40 yards, he did have 6 grabs for 52 yards and a touchdown. So he's kind of doing his best Christian McCaffrey there. I like the Falcons. I think that a lot of their players are streaming guys now. I mean, you're still going to start Bijan. You're still going to start London. London had 10 targets. And I think Kyle Pitts has kind of moved into being pretty consistently startable. but from a one-loss perspective, it's tough to play them when they're away from Atlanta.
Meanwhile, Christian McCaffrey, who we had questions about going into the season, 24 more carries for 129 yards, 2 touchdowns, led the team with 8 targets, caught 7 for 72. He has to be the MVP of the 49ers so far, right?
Shit, he may be the MVP of the league, and he's definitely the MVP of the fantasy world. I mean, he's putting up numbers, and that's what you want. And it's crazy because, like, if you look at his history and the number of touches he's getting, he's averaging the second highest carries per game, and he's getting the highest carries plus targets per game of his career. And he's what, in year 9 now? And if you look back at his history, what he's telling you is you need to trade him away because he's going to be a hot mess next year. But you have to keep him to get through the playoffs. So and anybody with any sense is going to be like, yeah, sure, I'll trade for a 30-year-old running back. And they're going to say, look what happened to Alvin Kamara. And then they look back at what happens every time CMC has these monster seasons. He breaks for a couple of years.
Maybe he's learned to drink vampire blood.
Maybe. I love what he's doing for fantasy, but it's going to be scary because of the way that he breaks after high volume years.
On to Monday night. It was another doubleheader. The first game saw the Detroit Lions hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Got the 24-9 victory. Mike Evans returned, 4 targets, no receptions, went down. At first they said it was a concussion, but it came out he broke his collarbone. His season is over. The man had never been short of 1,000 yards in a season. He will finish with 14 for 140 and a touchdown. Getting up there now. He's 32. Is this kind of the swan song for Mike Evans, the fantasy star?
Yeah, I think so. He's under contract next year, I think. So he'll be back and he'll have a chip on his shoulder. He's gonna want to say, let me go out and show you that the only reason I didn't get that 1,000 was because I got injured. But they've got Emeka Egbuka. They've got Chris Godwin, who's going to be younger. Tez Johnson is flashing. Jalen McMillan flashed last year, and he'll be back. Their passing game is in decent shape, and I'm a little nervous about Egbuka with his hamstring. We'll see how he ended up playing the whole game, but his hamstring was iffy after last week. If he can manage to keep it healthy for the rest of the season and stay on the field, I mean, unfortunately, he only caught 4 of his 12 targets. But what do we always watch Tampa, and when their wide receivers are banged up and injured, Cade Otton is the play. Otton had 7 for 9 for 65 yards. And he didn't get in the end zone, but that was a fantastic day.
Mike Evans is a free agent at the end of this year.
Is he?
Yep.
It feels like, with Todd Bowles still being there, if he doesn't lose his job, which, the way they're playing, I don't think he's they're going to try to bring him back. And, that it's hard to let go.
They have Godwin on a long-term contract. They have Egbuka and they have Jalen McMillan. I don't know if they will. We'll have to see. Meanwhile,
they'll let him go to Chicago like Keenan Allen did, then bring him back in 2 years.
I don't know if Mike Evans is going to bounce back like that. He's been ebbing down the last couple of years. This kind of just feels like the final nail. Meanwhile, for the Lions, it's been Sonic and Knuckles in the backfield. Sonic's still going strong, but David Montgomery, it's been a slow going if you have him in fantasy. 4 out of the last 5 weeks. He has had 25 or fewer rushing yards, including the last 2 weeks, 24 against the Chiefs in a loss and 21 last night in a win. Is it time to worry if you were counting on him for fantasy?
Yeah, he's kind of moved into that TD dependent desperation flex play. He's Tyler Algier now is where he's at. He played 44% of the snaps, and he had 13 carries, but he did have 3 targets, caught 2 of them. So it's wild because he's in a situation where he's under contract for the next couple of years. He's in a winning situation. They're going for a touchdown. His role is getting diminished because Jahmyr Gibbs is just so dang good. And I don't think there's nothing about his career that tells me he's going to get disgruntled even if he starts playing 25% of the snaps. I think if he drops down to 25%, he's going to be like, look, I'll return kicks, put me out there on punt coverage. I just want to play. I want to win games. I'm going to do whatever it takes. He feels like a consummate team guy.
Yep.
But he's got Jahmyr Gibbs there. And it's just,
not working out for him.
How are you going to not give Jahmyr Gibbs the ball?
The final game of the week saw the Houston Texans go to Seattle, the Seahawks getting the 27-19 victory. Offensive line and running back issues for the Texans, but CJ Stroud just has not looked like the same quarterback. What are you doing with him?
He's QB 18, which is startable in Superflex. Honestly, if I roster him, I'm going to try to ride it out for this year and hope that the Texans draft him some O-line help. They did not do him any favors on the offensive line. He was under constant pressure against Seattle, wasn't getting any support from the running game. I mean, he led the team in rushing on 2 carries. So
it's grim. Houston has to be one of the biggest negative surprises of the year. At 2-4, they're well back in their division. I don't even really see a good path for them to make the playoffs. I think it'd be easier for the Ravens to make the playoffs than the Texans, the way things are going.
I felt, I picked the Texans to win because they were at home and their defense has been so good this year. And they just weren't able to get it done on offense. And what was the time of possession? 5-minute time of possession disadvantage, almost the same number of offensive plays. They just were not able to make the plays when they needed to. So, Nico Collins was, 4 catches on 10 targets. It was just, it was less than 50% completion rate. It was a tough game under pressure. They need to, no joke, they need a significant offensive line overhaul.
The Seahawks, meanwhile, we've been talking about this backfield. Once again, Zach Charbonnet has fewer carries, but 49 yards, both the rushing touchdowns, has more receptions, only 17 for 66 for Walker. Is it time to try to move him while he still has some name value?
Yeah, it depends on what the options are on your own team. He's getting the edge in touches, and he's the more explosive back. He just gets, Charbonnet is getting the 2-minute, 4-minute work. He's getting the red zone work. And until Walker can develop some power, and I'll be honest, I don't know that they want him to develop power. They're like, well, we'll just use the 230-pound back we already got. We want you to be explosive. We want to put you in position to make explosive plays. The offensive line just isn't giving him the opportunity to make those explosive plays. And the biggest knock I've always had on Kenneth Walker is he doesn't run the play that's blocked a lot of times. He's trying to bounce it outside. Well, this year it seems like he's running the play that's blocked and there's just nothing there. He's not trying to bounce a lot of stuff outside and losing yardage when he could get 3 yards, but he's getting 3 yards and that's all he's able to get. He's not able to make the big plays. So, I mean, if you've got better options, sure, see what you can do to move him. But I like the talent. I'm still a believer in Kenneth Walker's talent over Zach Charbonnet. But the way they use him, it certainly feels like Seattle believes in Zach Charbonnet.
Yeah, and I think what makes me also nervous is this is a contract year for Walker, which is one of the reasons I was higher on Charbonnet than you going into the season. I thought based on the way that they had kind of just shed contracts that they didn't want and started over on offense, that there was a chance that they were going to do this. And it certainly looks like they're rendering Walker somewhat superfluous. If you are not a factor on the hurry up offense or in the red zone or in the passing game, and you're kind of just the guy between the 20s, that, absent him breaking off some huge runs, I think it's going to be rough for fantasy, and then it'll be interesting to see where he ends up. My only knock against trying to trade him is I don't think his value is particularly high right now because he's
correct. He's a sell low right now. I would expect he goes somewhere else. I don't think they try to keep him because George Holani he's looked pretty good in his opportunities, and so I think they'll be like, we don't need to invest in the free agent. We've got Charbonnet. We've got Holani. We can, we're going to throw the ball to Jackson Smith and Jigba. So,
yeah, sounds good. All right, well, that'll do it for us today. That's a wrap on week 7. As I mentioned, 6 teams on a bye and a lot of ugly matchups. We will be talking about that when we come back tomorrow. Not a lot of time for people to fill in between, but if they have insomnia, Dennis, what can they do?
Can head on over to your favorite podcast platform, hit that search button, type in the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. Give us a like, give us a subscribe.
We appreciate it. We will see you tomorrow with a full preview of all 13 games for week 8 of the NFL season. Until then, have a great night.